There is a wood glue, stronger than anything on the shelf at your hardware store. It is made from milk, 1 quart of whole milk, a splash of vinegar, and a spoonful of lime. The Amish have been making it for generations. When you test it, the wood breaks before the glue does. We did not stop using milk glue because it failed. We stopped because you cannot patent milk. You cannot charge $14 a bottle for something a farmer makes from yesterday's leftovers. This is the story of casein glue, the adhesive that held together the aircraft of 2 world wars, the furniture of 3 centuries, and the barns of an entire culture. And this is why the chemical industry buried it under a wall of plastic bottles. In the tombs of ancient Egypt, where wood and gold endured through centuries of darkness, a quiet secret lay hidden in the joinery. Archaeologists armed with mass spectrometers have traced the fingerprints of a milk-derived protein, beta-casein, on wooden funerary objects buried more than 4,000 years ago. These artifacts, preserved in the dry air of the Nile Valley, reveal a mixture of tree resin, animal glue, and a pale, curdled binder. Modern analysis confirms what the ancient artisans knew by touch. Milk, soured and thickened, could be transformed into a glue that outlasted empires. The Egyptians had no word for casein, but their recipe, milk paste, lime, and patience became the foundation for generations of craft. Gesso, the white ground beneath painted wood, was rich with this same milk protein, binding pigment to panel and wood to wood. The term shem, meaning white, appears in hieratic tablets as a nod to the milky binder, a linguistic ancestor to the Latin word caesium and the Greek word casein. Centuries later, Roman engineers carried this knowledge into the heart of the empire. Vitruvius, in his treatise on architecture, described a white milk glue mixed with lime, used for joining wood in shields, ships, and temples. Legionary shields recovered from the ruins of Roman forts show 3 layers of beech, bonded not with tar or pitch, but with a casein glue that resisted humidity and time. The recipe traveled along Roman roads, its name settling into the language of builders as caseum, a scientific label for the milk protein that would echo through the ages. In the hands of ancient craftsmen, milk became more than food. It became the silent architect of endurance. In the dim libraries of medieval monasteries, a new chapter for milk glue was quietly written. The English monk Theophilus in the 12th century left behind a recipe for a curd and lime adhesive, acidified milk curd strained and dried, then blended with powdered lime and ash. His formula, preserved in the Liber de Arte, did not vanish with the scriptorium's candlelight. Instead, it found its way into the ledgers of German and Swiss guilds, where the Latin term gluten casein, cheese glue, became a mark of trade knowledge. By the late Middle Ages, carpenters in Augsburg were required to master milch lime, a skill passed from master to apprentice, written not just in books but in the muscle memory of joiners and cabinet makers. When Mennonite and Amish families left the Palatinate for Pennsylvania in the 1730s, they carried more than tools and Bibles. Immigration ledgers from the period list casein lime among their household goods, a recipe as essential as seed corn or spinning wheels. In Amish workshops, the process endured: sour milk, lime, a careful hand, and a slow cure by the stove. Notebooks from the Amish Heritage Museum echo the Swiss instructions almost word for word, down to the final dry heat cure that locks the bond. Modern conservation science has traced this lineage. Analysis of a 1795 Pennsylvania Dutch ladder using FTIR spectroscopy revealed the spectral fingerprint of casein glue, matching the signature found in medieval European panels. Oral histories from Amish craftsmen in Ohio, recorded as recently as 2025, describe the same method, taught by fathers to sons, never written down, but always remembered. The recipe survives not as a relic, but as a living handoff, bridging continents and centuries, holding together barn beams and family secrets alike. Milk, at first glance, appears simple, white, smooth, and familiar. Yet beneath the surface, it holds a hidden architecture. Suspended in every glass are microscopic spheres called casein micelles, each one a cluster of tangled protein chains and calcium phosphate. At the milk's natural pH of about 6.5, these micelles float in a delicate balance, stabilized by a hairy outer layer of kappa casein. This fragile arrangement keeps the proteins dissolved, ready to be transformed. The journey from liquid to glue begins with a single disruption: acid. When vinegar or another acid is stirred into warm milk, the pH drops toward 4.6, the isoelectric point of casein. Negative charges on the phosphate groups are neutralized. Calcium phosphate bridges inside the micelle dissolve. The stabilizing kappa casein layer detaches, and the micelles collapse into one another. Suddenly, the liquid curdles. Proteins tangle and aggregate, forming a solid mass, the curd. This is the first separation, the moment when a food becomes a material. But curd alone is not yet glue. The secret lies in the addition of lime, calcium hydroxide. When slaked lime is blended into the strained curd, the pH rises again, approaching neutrality. Calcium ions flood the mixture, binding to exposed phosphorine sites on the casein chains. These calcium bridges act as crosslinks, weaving the proteins into a dense, interconnected network. The result is calcium caseinate, an insoluble thermosetting polymer. As the mixture dries, water evaporates, and the calcium caseinate bridges draw closer, locking the protein chains in place. The adhesive hardens into a glass-like matrix that resists both water and heat. Unlike animal glues, which can be softened and reversed, this network does not melt or dissolve under ordinary conditions. It is the chemistry of permanence, born from the invisible structure of milk, revealed by a careful hand, and preserved in the quiet discipline of Amish workshops. Here, a simple shift in pH and a handful of lime unlock the secret strength that once held together shields, barns, and even the wings of wartime aircraft. Numbers tell the story that legends only hint at. In controlled trials, casein glue faces the same tests as its modern rivals: shear strength, water resistance, the relentless pressure of standardized machines. Under ASTM D905, casein lime adhesives consistently deliver dry shear strengths between 12 and 15 megapascals, outpacing commercial PVA glues, which settle at 9 to 11. The difference is not a rounding error. It is the span between a joint that fractures in the wood itself and one that fails along the seam. Water, the ancient enemy of glues, offers no easy victory here. After a full day submerged, casein retains 70 to 80% of its original strength, whereas PVA, the bottled king of hardware aisles, falls to nearly half. These numbers are not workshop folklore, but the outcome of ASTM D1183 water immersion protocols, repeated across laboratories and published in peer-reviewed journals. Materials scientists reviewing the data have called the calcium caseinate network a thermoset, a bond that does not melt or yield under heat, a glue that shrugs off the swelling and shrinking that destroy lesser joints. In block shear configurations, casein glues bend further before failure, showing a ductility that PVA simply cannot match. Longer cure times, warmer drying rooms, and careful milk selection all nudge these numbers higher, but the pattern remains. The old-world adhesive, made from curdled milk and lime, is not a relic of low expectations. It is a benchmark, a standard that modern chemistry only equals, never surpasses, in the most common joinery tasks. These results explain why engineers trusted casein to hold together the wings of wartime aircraft, and why Amish craftsmen, working far from the reach of synthetic resins, never abandoned the formula. In the numbers, the secret stands revealed. The strength of casein glue is not a myth, but a measured, repeatable fact. By the early 20th century, milk glue had reached its zenith. In factory towns and woodworking shops from Ohio to London, powdered casein brands like Casco and Weldwood lined the shelves, promising bonds that could outlast a generation. The labels read like quiet boasts: no shrinkage. Waterproof, stronger than the wood itself. These were not idle claims. Engineering bulletins from the United States Department of Agriculture, issued in the 1920s and the 1930s, laid out exacting recipes: 1 part casein powder, half a part hydrated lime, 3 parts water. Cured joints were measured in pounds per square inch, not folklore. Laboratory tests reported dry shear strengths of 1,200 pounds per square inch. Even after a day submerged, casein bonds retained 70% of their strength, a figure that modern PVA glues struggled to match. Industrial confidence in casein glue reached its most audacious test in the skies over wartime Europe. The de Havilland Mosquito, a wooden aircraft built for speed and stealth, relied on casein lime adhesive to hold its fuselage and wings together. Technical reports from 1942 document that the Mosquito's joints failed only when the wood itself splintered, never at the glue line. British engineers specified casein glue for its low weight, resistance to humidity, and heat stability, choosing it over newer synthetic formulas for the most demanding combat roles. The same adhesive bound the Horsa glider and the hulls of naval patrol boats, carrying the quiet assurance of a material that had already survived centuries of use. On the ground, commercial casein glues became household names. Hardware catalogs from the 1910s advertised Casco and Weldwood alongside saws and chisels, their powdered formulas ready to be mixed on site. The United States Department of Agriculture's Technical Bulletin 1052 standardized the process, giving craftsmen a recipe that could be trusted from barn beams to violin necks. For a brief span, the world's woodworkers placed their faith in a glue made from milk, lime, and thyme, a formula as old as civilization, now repackaged for the modern age. This was the crest of a tradition, a moment when the old world adhesive stood not as a relic, but as the industry standard. What followed was not a failure of the glue, but a failure of the marketplace to value what could not be patented or bottled for profit. Polyvinyl acetate arrived on the American market in 1937, not because it was a better glue, but because it was a better business. Patent filings for PVA, stamped and notarized, offered a legal monopoly over a formula that could be bottled, branded, and sold in every hardware aisle. Milk, by contrast, was unpatentable, a natural product ruled by the Supreme Court in 1935 as belonging to no one. A farmer could curdle his own, a craftsman could mix it in a bowl, and no company could claim exclusive rights. The chemistry of profit, not the chemistry of adhesion, began to decide what held the world together. The triumph of PVA was engineered in the boardrooms, not the workshops. Casein glue, for all its measurable strength, faced a retail economy that demanded shelf life above all. Bottled PVA could sit for years, unchanged, on a warehouse pallet or a store shelf. Casein, made from milk and lime, lasted barely 2 weeks in refrigeration before souring beyond use. The USDA report in 1942 laid out the numbers. Casein's working life was 10 days at best, versus 12 months for a sealed bottle of PVA. For retailers, the choice was simple. For manufacturers, it was a windfall. The economics of the shift were brutal in their clarity. A quart of milk priced at 15 cents in 1939 yielded enough casein for a handful of joints. A 16-ounce bottle of PVA, selling for up to $14, covered the same area and could be shipped, stored, and sold at a profit margin casein could never match. The profit was not in the glue, but in the guarantee of repeat sales, long shelf life, and exclusive branding. Milk glue disappeared from catalogs, not because it failed, but because it could not be owned. Legal frameworks sealed the fate. The synthetic origin of PVA meant every tweak, every branded variant could be patented, defended, and licensed. Casein, a protein found in every dairy barn, was left to the margins, too familiar to protect and too perishable to scale. Retail chains dropped powdered milk glue from their shelves, woodworking schools rewrote their syllabi, and the logic of the market swept away 1,000 years of craft in a single generation. What vanished was not just a glue, but a model of self-sufficiency replaced by a product designed for the shelf, not for the bench. In the quiet workshops of Lancaster County, the old method persists, passed from father to son with no written record. just the memory of hands moving through curd, lime, and wood. In 2025, oral histories collected from Amish elders in Ohio describe the same ritual their ancestors brought from the Palatinate: milk left to sour, curds pressed and strained, lime folded in until the paste thickens, and then the careful waiting as the glue sets by the warmth of a wood stove. The recipe is never written down. Every batch is a lesson in patience and judgment, a test of skill that cannot be bought in a bottle or found in a manual. Luthiers who repair violins and cellos speak of a bond that does not creep, even under the constant tension of strings. In their experience, casein glue forms a joint that stays tight through years of vibration and humidity, holding where synthetic glues sometimes fail. One luthier notes that after a century, a casein joint can be softened and repaired without damaging the wood, a quality prized in the world of restoration, where reversibility means survival. Museum conservators encounter the evidence in the field. In the American Decorative Arts Museum, a restorer working on an 18th century Pennsylvania Dutch ladder finds the spectral signature of casein in the glue line, proof that the old formula endures not as a curiosity, but as a living tool. These encounters are not rare. Across workshops and museums, the story repeats, a material that refuses to disappear, quietly holding together the artifacts of a world that values endurance over novelty. In the hands of these makers and keepers, the tradition lives, not as nostalgia, but as a daily answer to the question of what should last. In laboratories and workshops far from the old barn stoves of Pennsylvania, the future of milk glue is being written in the language of green chemistry. Researchers are reimagining casein not as a relic, but as a foundation for new, sustainable adhesives. By blending the ancient protein with biodegradable crosslinkers, they have created nanostructured casein composites that rival the performance of synthetic resins, and without the environmental debt. These new formulas, tested in peer-reviewed journals, show that casein can be tailored to bond not only wood, but also paper, fiberboard, and even biodegradable plastics, all while decomposing harmlessly at the end of their useful life. The environmental argument is no longer a matter of nostalgia. Where polyvinyl acetate and polyurethane glues are born from oil and leave a trail of microplastics and volatile organic compounds, milk glue begins and ends with food-grade ingredients. Its carbon footprint is measured in the calories of a cow and the heat of a kitchen. In recent prototypes, casein adhesives have been engineered to break down in soil within weeks, an answer to the mounting crisis of persistent plastic waste. The low toxicity of casein, confirmed by toxicology panels, makes it safe for children's toys, musical instruments, and indoor furniture, where off-gassing from synthetics remains a hidden hazard. Across Europe and North America, a small but growing movement of makers, conservation scientists, and biochemists is pushing the boundaries of what milk glue can become. Their work is not only a return but an advance, a recognition that the overlooked secrets of the past may hold solutions for a world in search of repairable, renewable, and truly sustainable materials. In the hands of these innovators, the old Amish method becomes a blueprint for the next generation of adhesives, strong, safe, and rooted in the cycles of nature. On workbenches across Amish country, milk and lime still bind wood stronger than factory glue. The world abandoned casein not because it failed, but because it could not be patented or mass-marketed. In an age of toxic shortcuts and brittle supply chains, this forgotten formula stands as proof. True durability cannot be trademarked. The old secrets endure, waiting for those ready to reclaim them. What would you trust to hold your world together?